Talk about the stories of the people who've been detained. Talk about the need for business people to get 4G and to move goods and services around Palestine without being stopped and have to unload and load trucks all the time. Talk about settler violence. Talk about things that are grounded in facts and make the lives of Palestinians difficult every day. And if you do these things, and if you don't quit and don't get frustrated, I'm guaranteeing you the conversation will change. But that conversation's got to take place.
What changed the dynamic was Jesse Jackson in 84 and then in 88. Jesse built the first progressive coalition around Israel-Palestine that we'd ever seen. We went to the convention with 1,200 delegates. We went to the convention armed with platform planks, which we had won in 10 states. Hey, Congressman. I remember New York Times wrote the article, Arabs versus Jews at the Democratic Convention. It was actually Jews versus Jews. There were more Jewish American delegates supporting Jesse in 88 than, we had 55 Arab American delegates. It was a big deal. We'd only had 4, the highest number we'd ever had before that. But it was a progressive movement. And we introduced a plank that was mutual recognition, territorial compromise, and self-determination for both peoples. I mean, shocking, right? You would have, I mean, it was like, I had lunch with people from the other side telling me, you'll destroy the Democratic Party. You'll never have a place in the Democratic Party. I used to call it the Chicken Little gate, you know? They would run around, the sky's falling, the sky's falling. What was fascinating to me was, as an aside, coming forward this year with the Sanders campaign, which offered an equally mild, I mean, frankly, we wanted to strike the BDS line out. We wanted to strike out a line on Jerusalem. I thought that would be the fight. I had no idea the fight would end up being over occupation and settlements. And what occurred to me was that, as I looked around the table at the folks who were there, some of whom are good people, and smart policy people, is that something happens in this game where they take their policy brain out and they put it someplace, I don't tell you where, and they substitute their politics brain, which they think is a smart brain. We can't do it because you don't like, I mean, here's what they told me. We can't do it because Sheldon Adelson will come out against us. Jesus, he's going to come out against you no matter what you do, right? And the people who like Sheldon Adelson, they're not going to vote for you. I mean, so it's the same thing on health care. They're going to spend money again. I just spoke at the Medicare for All session this morning, and the people, I mean, can you actually imagine losing an election to Donald Trump by saying, I advocate Medicare for all? I mean, really? So, but I just want to just close it now by saying what happened in between Jackson and now was the peace process. I supported it. We all supported it in the beginning and thought that this was a very progressive. What we had no idea was that the politics of Washington were not capable of delivering on that process. It was like they spent years, it was like going to a marriage counselor after fighting for 35 years and saying, we need help, and the marriage counselor says, that's great, I'm going to leave you guys alone in a room now and see if you can work it out. And with people like Dennis Ross and company who were running it, there simply was no chance it was going to succeed. But it sucked the energy out of the dynamic that we had in the late 80s and early 90s. And it took us, unfortunately, way too much bloodshed, way too much damage. Because remember, when we were doing the Jackson thing in 88, there was the Intifada that was going on. It built that momentum. And so it took the work of a mass movement and a courageous person like Bernie Sanders. Because remember, if Bernie hadn't elevated it, it wouldn't have happened. I mean, we could be doing what we're doing. He gave us a qualitative boost forward. Now the question is, what do we do? And my feeling is that we do not let it go. The conversation is just beginning again. And it's beginning again and cannot end. It cannot be where we put it back on hold again for another 20 years. The lives of people in the region cannot tolerate that. I think American interests, America's ability to function in the world. I mean, when we fight for Palestine, we make America better. We make America smart. We make America save itself. We're going to help America save itself whether it wants to or not.
Say that, you know, so why shouldn't we change our policy and ensure that the Palestinian people can live in their own homeland with dignity and with the rights that come from being a state and this being your state? Why shouldn't we change our policies? Why can't we? Well, I think the fact is that the Israeli government, which is the most right-wing government ever to exist in the state of Israel, in its history, the most right-wing government. You got a guy like Trump, who is now the Minister of Defense in Israel, calling the shots on defense. You know, lost my train of thought right there. But
Trump distracted you.
Yeah, Trump distracted me. But I will tell you this. I'm going to tell you this, yeah, that's what I was going to point out. The fact is that the Israeli government has been much more effective than the Palestinians at telling or creating their narrative. Now, how can that be? It's because folks in Washington, D.C. won't even take the call of the Palestinians. I don't care how much money they have to sign on to promote the Palestinian narrative. So there is no presence in Washington, D.C. Of the Palestinian narrative, other than the folks that you have right here in this room and the organizations that they represent. So I want to thank all of you all for being the K Street lobbyists on this particular issue. I don't think that your efforts are going to be met with failure. I mean, failure is not an option if we want to achieve peace throughout the world. Am I right?
Yes.
So I have one question from you. Hillary Clinton went in front of AIPAC and supported AIPAC and has supported Israel. And she is a hawk when it comes to Israel. She is a hawk when it comes to supporting all of the dictators in the Arab world. She is a hawk in war. With all of that, how could you ask us, from a moral perspective, to support her, even though we all know it doesn't have to be said, for none of us in this room, that Trump is a right-wing, fascist, racist, corporate capitalist. We don't like him. But how could we just go with the lesser of two evils? And we don't even know, in the issue of the Palestine, if she is actually the lesser of two evils.
Donald Trump is a wall builder. Hillary Clinton is a bridge builder. Now, that takes me to the second issue, or to the first issue. And you may disagree with me, and I respect your disagreement. I find that it's going to be much easier to be influential with a Democrat in the White House, despite the difficulties that may exist that you touched upon, sir. I think it'll be much easier for me, speaking as I'm speaking to you, to be heard by Hillary Clinton than it would for me to be banging on the door from outside and throwing bricks at the window trying to get Donald Trump to listen to me.
He knows what the public polls are saying. He knows what the grassroots movements are saying. He knows what young people care about. And guess what they care about? Justice for Palestinians. So Bernie Sanders, back to a point that Dr. Jim Zogby made, which I think is a critical point. Bernie Sanders is a smart politician. Bernie was like, I ain't going to AIPAC. I got a scheduling conflict. Sisters and brothers. Right? Come on. You could go there for an hour if you wanted to. Like, let's be serious here, right? Then Bernie Sanders chose at the New York debate to engage in that type of conversation because he knew who he was talking to. He knows that the people who are not going to support him are the very people who are on the other side of the platform. And I said this yesterday for people that were in the room when we did this event yesterday on Islamophobia, is that, and maybe you need to correct me if I'm wrong, because I might be also having some dementia. Can somebody remind me of a staunch pro-Israel organization that has come out in support or stood up against the killing of unarmed black people by law enforcement in this country? If you know one, I want to know who they are, because I don't see that happening, right? So what I want you to understand is what I said yesterday, is that the same people who justify the massacres of Palestinian children and innocent civilians in Palestine and call it collateral damage are the same people that will find excuses to justify murders of unarmed people in this country by law enforcement. Don't sleep on the connections and why intersectionality and why when I am doing this work, as people say, Linda, you're Palestinian. You got a platform. Why are you not using your platform? And I get this from my own people, by the way. Palestinian Americans say this to me. I want to keep it real here. People say to me, Linda, you are Palestinian, you got this profile. Why are you not 100%? Like, why isn't your whole life living and breathing justice for Palestinians? You know what I tell those people? Because justice for Palestinians is not going to come at the hands of the Palestinian people in the United States of America. It's going to come at the hands of us being part of other social justice movements and standing up for other people. And black people haven't been liberated fully in the United States of America for 450 years. You better believe we ain't getting liberation in Palestine until black people are free in this country. That's my personal belief. I'm with the folks in this room with this idea that what we built and what, by the way, like I said, this wasn't just, I don't want to give all the credit to Bernie Sanders and the Bernie Sanders campaign. It's because people like you, we were able to do that in the Bernie Sanders campaign. The question is, what are we willing to do after this? And I think the time is now for us to really ramp this up in a way that we haven't done before. And I'm just going to answer some of my own questions that I think, I just want to put out there. I get like hot. Just give me a second here. What I want people to understand about the Palestinian rights cause is, let's put Palestinians to the side for a second, right? Let's put that to the side. That's the moral thing to do. Palestinians are human beings. They deserve dignity and respect and human rights, right? We all on the same page on that. So let's put that to the side for a second. What I want the American public to understand, even those that are not really like part of rooms like this, is that we're in a fight for the Constitution in this country, right? Because we have like former Congressman Joe Walsh is threatening the President of the United States of America, right? We got presidential candidates that are vying to be holding the highest office, talking about pigs, bullets soaked in pigs' blood and inciting violence across the country, right? And then we stand and say, Linda, that's freedom of speech. That's why we live in the United States of America. But then we got the same people who are passing legislation across the country, anti-BDS legislation, suppressing the freedom of constitutionally protected activity, right? No one's calling that freedom. So what I want people to understand, that this is not just about Palestinian human rights. This is the suppression of free speech in this country for our right to organize non-violently for the issues that we care about. So this is a multi-pronged movement that is really, for me, the soul of what it means to have a U.S. Constitution and what it means to be an American in this country, and also what it means to be a patriot in this country. Sisters and brothers, we are not outnumbered in this country, but guess what? We are out-organized. That's what it is. So I ask you today to continue this, and I will say this about the DNC. I'm a delegate to the DNC. And we have a syndrome in the progressive movement, and it's called PEP.
Called what?
PEP. Progressive except for Palestine. And I just want to give everyone a definition that you can share outside this room. If you are not progressive on the issue of Palestine, then you are no damn progressive. Yeah. If you are ever in a room with people calling themselves progressive, but do not stand for justice and freedom for Palestinian people, I want you to challenge them in this room. Because if we continue to allow them to hold this title of progressive, then I'm not a progressive. So the question is, who's defining who's liberal and progressive? You can't be liberal if you're not for the justice and freedom of Palestinian people. That's just my personal view about that. So